Today, we're going to be talking to you about Costa Rica and the political and legal system in place. We're particularly going to be talking to you about how the political parties, the government, the legal system, and the international relations, and how they impact business on Costa Rica. And then we were going to give you an overall analysis of how this political system relates to the main topic of this course, being social entrepreneurship in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, there are two main industries, that being tourism, which brings in millions of tourists a year to visit the majestic mountains and volcanoes, as well as beaches, and agriculture that exports thousands of tons of bananas and coffee each year. Each of these industries are crucial to the economy and employ many Costa Ricans. While these are known as two of the most prominent industries, other industries such as real estate and manufacturing have continued to grow because of the friendly tax laws, welcoming laws, and friendly work environment. Costa Rica is often referred to as one of the most intriguing countries in Latin America for businesses to invest in because of its 61st ranking on the ease of doing business scale. Costa Rica ranks well above the regional average in most economic freedom categories and provides the opportunity for businesses to move into Latin America. But before we dive too deep into the business aspect, let's take a step back and analyze the political parties. As of the last election, there were 21 political parties in Costa Rica, but only 9 of them were able to earn seats in the legislative branch. Since its creation in 1951 by Jose Figueres, the National Libertarian Party has won all but 4 elections and has controlled the legislative majority throughout. This party is a centristic social democracy and rules with 18 seats in the legislative branch. Another party, which the current president, Carlos Alvarado Quesada, is a part of, is the Citizens Action Party, and this is a more progressive party, and they currently hold the presidency right now. And the last, but the party that has been the second most prominent is the Social Christian Unity Party, and they've won 3 presidencies since its creation in 1983, and they have 8 seats in the legislative branch. Since the NLP has retained most of the control since the 1950s, they've established a mixed economy that represents private freedoms, but also has a centralized economic planning and controls the markets. The next question can be, why and how are these things important and how they affect business in Costa Rica? Well, since the government has partial control, there's an opportunity for businesses who work with governments to solve issues in a country to flourish in Costa Rica because the government can lobby for them. But with that being said, they also respect private freedoms, so all businesses are free to come into Costa Rica. Now that we've discussed the political parties of Costa Rica, we'll talk to you more about the government of Costa Rica and how government affects business.
So we'll start our discussion on the government and government involvement from a Costa Rican citizen's point of view.
In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Costa Rican government. Costa Rica operates under a democratic republic, so that means that there's a president elected and the government is largely ran by the people, or the government is elected by the people. Government intervention here in day-to-day life in Costa Rica is not prevalent. I sense a lot of freedom here. It feels like there's a lot less governance in general. The government to population density seems a lot less. There's more freedom. There's more liberty. And generally, the government is not looking over your shoulder or looking over what you're doing in life. There are some taxation, personal and business taxations that I will go over in the future. But generally, the feeling from the government in Costa Rica is the police force is friendly. There is no army in Costa Rica. It's a peaceful government. And there's not a lot of government oversight or government intervention in your lives. One example of that is building in Costa Rica. The building permit process is challenging for some, but we've gone through the process quite a few times, and the process is quite simple in our eyes. So getting building permits and getting that going is quite easy. And then the checkup on the buildings is much different than the US. I would say it's less strenuous. And they're not out looking for problems. And same with the police force. They're not really out looking for you. They're not looking to write tickets or roll stop signs or speeding or anything like that. Not that we would recommend any of those things, but just the general sense is that the government is not constantly looking for ways to tax or write tickets and things like that. So it's a feeling. What I would imagine was in the early to mid 1900s in the U.S. when there was.
So the distribution of power is very similar to that of the United States with its system of checks and balances. Its executive branch has a president and 2 vice presidents, as well as 19 cabinet members that are selected by the president. Its legislative branch consists of 57 deputies, which is similar to our House of Representatives. They represent country's 7 provinces and they're elected every 4 years. The number of deputies for each province depends on that province's population. Finally, the judicial branch consists of a Supreme Court that is divided into 4 chambers. The Constitutional Chamber decides on court cases. When deciding whether or not to do business in a country, it's really important to first look at their government's regulations and overall practices in general. Costa Rica is run by a constitutional democracy, with a new unicameral legislative assembly that is elected every 4 years. They're allowed to vote at 18 years old. These 2 factors alone, especially the democracy, places a country in a more appealing light, as we learn in D270 about the increased level of business in a democracy. The Costa Rican laws, regulations, and practices are transparent and foster competition, which is always good from an economic standpoint. Unfortunately, though, there are certain sectors that are controlled by a state monopoly, and there, competition is not allowed. There are also environmental regulations which can impact your business depending on its mission or product. When reviewing environmental impact statements, the Costa Rican government that is in charge of doing so tends to be slow in the issuance of its findings, which ultimately causes delays for investors when completing their specific projects. Looking at the degree of government involvement in business, their economic freedom score is 65.8 out of 180. To put things in perspective, the United States scored 17th. While this is not terrible, it's prevented from being higher due to a few key factors. The first is the new legal entities tax, which complicates the process of starting a new business. There are also laws governing investments in mortgages, buildings, and lands, but these laws, like most of their laws and regulations, are also transparent. There's a lot of potential in the government's direction towards greater prosperity and freedom, but they're going to have to create more reforms to cut back on labor policies. This may be a challenge because of traditional political views. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of potential in the Costa Rica economic freedom score moving up. This is because there's a growing emphasis on democracy and human rights and freedom. The factors that have and will continue to sustain the democratic ideal are comparative prosperity, educational opportunity, and enlightened political leaders. This ultimately emphasizes the positive and liberal direction the country is heading in, proving good for those looking to start a business in the future.
For Costa Rica's legal system, they use a civil law system. The civil law system is based on Spanish civil code and French legal systems. As you can see, civil law is the most widespread type of legal system in the world, with almost 150 countries using it worldwide. One of the biggest differences between civil law and other kinds is that civil laws are organized into systematic written codes. While Costa Rica has some undeveloped systems, according to REF World, they have the highest rank of political rights. Due to the stability and longevity of this democratic rule of law is generally strong. However, there are still some exceptions. For example, Costa Rica has had some presidents been involved in corruption scandals. They also are constantly battled with the problem of overcrowded prisons. Lastly, Costa Rica has also not been as welcoming to the LGBTQ community, as well as the indigenous people. They are finding themselves still discriminated against. The backbone of the Costa Rican economy is thought to be small business owners and entrepreneurs. However, in the past, it has been very challenging to start small businesses. This is why Costa Rican government decided to develop PIMES. PIMES was developed to create a unified point that will provide all the information, tools, and services that may be required by small businesses to start up and guide them through the growth and development phase of their business. This was created with the hopes that small businesses can be more successful and continue stimulating the Costa Rican economy. There's a video next that will go into more detail on PIMES.
So I did come across a program run by the Ministry of Economy and and this is support for what's called PYMES, P-Y-M-E-S. PYMES are small and medium businesses. So let's take a look a little bit more about what this agency does for small business support systems. The PYMES organization will provide consulting and also training for small business enterprises. We also sponsor which is an annual event that keeps growing, and it's held at this medicine from Sarchi was certainly attracting a crowd with his very political.
So next we will be moving into international relations and how this affects doing business in Costa Rica. Overall, there are many net positive relations. Costa Rica shares views with France and many other European countries over multilateralism and climate change. Additionally, their foreign policy is based on respect for human rights and sustainable development. This creates a net positive impression of Costa Rica in the eyes of other foreign governments. However, there are also negatives to Costa Rica's international relations. One particularly strong one is Costa Rica and Nicaragua regularly file border disputes over the use of a river near the border. This creates conflict between the two countries and often creates difficulties for businesses in the nearby area. Additionally, Costa Rica is a Tier 2 watch list and a transshipment country for drug smuggling. This means that they do not comply with the minimum standards for the elimination of sex trafficking and also are a known country that is prone to smuggling of drugs. This creates a negative light that other countries and foreign governments view Costa Rica in. Additionally, Costa Rica is ranked 73rd for the ease of trade, meaning that it is more time-consuming and expensive to establish international trade relations, which are crucial for businesses in Costa Rica, as the country's population is only approximately 4 million. In terms of specific relations with the United States, they are primarily positive. Both are members of many international organizations, such as the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and many others. The U.S. is also Costa Rica's largest trading partner, and this relationship is crucial, as key resources flow between the two countries, from everything from medical equipment to petroleum, gas, and commodities such as coffee. The U.S. Peace Corps also regularly volunteer in Costa Rica, aid in education and development of its people in impoverished regions. The U.S. foreign policy has three primary goals in Costa Rica, those being to improve the security, economic growth, and promote prosperity, security, and governance. All of these goals are in line with the relationship with Costa Rica and are mutually beneficial, as it both improves Costa Rica and strengthens an ally of the United States. In 2018, the U.S. provided over $70 million to Costa Rica to help attain these goals. So what do these international relations mean for businesses? Well, it provides them with many opportunities and also a couple threats to keep in mind. The stable international relations ease worries of war, embargoes, or other trade shortages that could have negative effects on businesses. Additionally, the very strong relation to the United States provides high potential for foreign direct investment and access to large consumer markets. Human-focused foreign policy also sheds a positive light on businesses and makes them to be viewed as potentially favorable by NGOs or other governments. In terms of threats, the trade is a major threat as it is both costly and expensive to establish. Additionally, the human-focused foreign policy could also be viewed as a threat because it could mean higher costs as businesses are held to higher ethical standards. So an overall analysis from everything in the political and legal structures of Costa Rica means that we recommend social enterprises should do business in Costa Rica, as the main party allows for high economic freedom and the overall democratic government sets up a stable government system. Additionally, the PIME system to aid small businesses improves weaknesses in their structure and allows for an ease of business creation. Stable international relations are also a positive factor, meaning that businesses will be viewed positively and have access to markets outside of the country. Now, it is important to consider the following risks should a business and social enterprise decide to move into Costa Rica. Corruption still exists within the government, and in addition, the government support of business is underdeveloped compared to other countries. Businesses will have to take these into consideration. The 73rd ranking on the ease of international trade is also something businesses will need to consider, as it will drive up their costs and make it slower to realize those international markets. Additionally, the ethical standards that Costa Rica holds itself and other countries to means higher costs. With that, we do recommend that a business move into Costa Rica so long as they consider the following risks and move to mitigate them.